Hey all you cats and chicks out there, welcome back to Control Players Unite. I'm your host, Dr. Red. Today we will be reviewing all of the damage counter cards in the current standard format. These are cards that place or move around damage counters on the opponent's Pokemon. Damage counter cards are valuable for control decks because often the opponent will have a damage reduction or denial scheme, but not one for damage counters, as these are an effect of an attack. Granted, there are ways of blocking said effects, like Mist Energy. These are few and far between. We are interested in damage counters because it is another tool in the control player's toolbox. Some cards will receive an elaboration, others not. Let's begin. Cacturne and its base form Cacnea has counterattack quills. If the opponent hits this Pokemon when it's in the active spot, you put 3 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. Chestnut V was fun when it first came out, but it sees no play anymore, even as a meme deck. Needleline says if your active Chestnut V is damaged by an attack, you put 3 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon, and this also stacks, so if you have 4 in play, it'll be 12 damage counters. Meowscarada EX is pretty popular. It sees its handful of competitive decks. Bouquet Magic allows you to discard a basic Grass Energy and allows you to place 3 damage counters on one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. Trevenant says it's an ability called Forest Miasma, which states during Pokemon Checkup, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you put a damage counter on your opponent's active Pokemon. This is paired with Claydol, which does 120 damage to itself and puts damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon until there is only 1 damage marker left, 1 HP left remaining. Victreebel Slow Acting Acid, at the end of your opponent's next turn, put 12 damage counters on the defending Pokemon. Magby, during your opponent's next turn, if this opponent is damaged by an attack, even if it's knocked out, you put 6 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. Note, it also has a nice free retreat. Ninetales, put 9 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. During your next turn, this Pokemon can't attack. Radiant Blastoise, you must discard a water energy card from your hand in order to use this ability. Once during your turn, you may put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. This hasn't seen any play, but I think for the Win TCG actually did a meme deck with this one. Starmie, Mysterious Comet ability. Once during your turn, you may put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon, and if you did that, you must discard this Pokemon and all attached cards. Tsareena EX, put damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon until its remaining HP is 30. This is a really fun meme deck to play on the ladder, as it has a board wipe effect with Hisuian Braviary. Minun, if you have a Plusle in play, whenever your opponent attaches an energy card from their hand to one of their Pokemon, you put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. But if you have more Minun and Plusles in play, this effect, this ability, I should say, doesn't stack. So it's only just 1, not 2 or more. Radiant Charger Bug, whenever any player attaches an energy card from their hand to one of their Pokemon V, put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. Raichu, Clatter Bolts, this attack does 50 damage to each Pokemon that has any damage counters on it. And while, ladies and gentlemen, this is not a damage counter Pokemon, it does damage rather. The thing is, it's spreading damage around, so it has the function of a spread deck like Mismagius, which we'll see here in a second. So it works like a damage counter spread deck, even if it is doing damage, so I thought well to include it. This is the Claydol I mentioned earlier, Kaboom Doll. Put damage counters on your opponent's active Pokemon until its remaining HP is 10, and then you do 120 damage to yourself. Cofagrigus EX has Hollow Hands. Put 5 damage counters on your opponent's benched Pokemon any way you like. This is often paired with stuff like Mismagius and Hisuian Braviary. Dedenne EX, move all damage counters from one of your benched Pokemon to your opponent's active Pokemon. Drifblim, put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. The second Drifblim, put 8 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way you like. This might see play, or it could see play with Gardevoir EX, but it's not really all that popular. Flutter Mane is extremely popular. Hex Hurl for 90 damage. You put 2 damage counters on your opponent's benched Pokemon any way you like. This is a staple in ancient box decks and also sees play in some control decks. It's because of its ability, Midnight Fluttering. As long as it's in the active spot, your opponent's active Pokemon has no abilities. Regardless of whether it's a basic or not, it has no abilities, period. Gengar, Netherworld Gate. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon's in the discard, you can put it on your bench, and if you do, you put 3 damage counters on this Pokemon. It's popular with Hisuian Zoroark V-Star decks, but the reason why it's here is because of Screaming Circle. Put 2 damage counters on your opponent's active for each of your opponent's benched Pokemon. The other Gengar has Hollow Dive. Put 3 damage counters on your opponent's benched Pokemon any way you like. Gengar EX, he has a lot of play on the casual ladder. It has the Gnawing Curse ability, and this one does stack. Whenever your opponent attaches an energy card from their hand to one of their Pokemon, you put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. Hatterene VMAX has Witch's Domain ability, and this one does stack as well. Once during your turn, you may move up to 2 damage counters from your Pokemon to your opponent's active Pokemon, and those can be Pokemon anywhere on your side of the board. This hasn't seen any competitive play. I did see a YouTuber, I think it was Little Dark Fury, kind of get it to work with Arceus V-Star, but otherwise it's just kind of an awkward card. Only doing 150 for 2 colorless and a psychic, and your opponent's Pokemon's now confused. So it kind of has potential, but really it just seems kind of clunky. Assuming Typhlosion V-Star has seen no play. Hollow Flame says put 3 damage counters on your opponent's bench Pokemon any way you like. And if your opponent's active Pokemon has exactly 4 damage counters on it, that Pokemon is knocked out. That's for the Shimmering Star V-Star power. Iron Valiant EX has the Tachyon Bits ability. This one does stack. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon moves from the bench to the active, you can put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. Mewtwo has Reflective Barrier. During your opponent's next turn, if this Pokemon is damaged by an attack, you put damage counters on the attacking Pokemon equal to damage done to this Pokemon. This is a good kind of fun tech card for decks like Future Box, whose Pokemon do pretty much only high damage or middling amounts of damage, but more than once, like the Baby Miraidon. Hasn't seen any competitive play, but I see it occasionally in an online Japanese build. Mimikyu is a staple in pretty much every deck, especially Control. Ghost Eye puts 7 damage counters on your opponent's active Pokemon. This is the card I mentioned earlier, Mismagius. It has Eerie Voice. Put 2 damage counters on each of your opponent's Pokemon. It also has the Spiteful Magic ability. If this Pokemon has full HP and is knocked out by damage from an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, so 1-hit KO, you put 8 counters on the attacking Pokemon. So 8 damage counters onto an attacking Pokemon plus 2 from your, say, previous attack. You're doing 100 damage. But in damage counters, 100, I should say, yeah, damage counters, 10 damage counters. Mr. Mime has the Mimic Barrier ability. If this Pokemon and your opponent's active have the same amount of energy attached, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from your opponent's active Pokemon. Slime Power says, however, put 3 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon any way you like. Hasn't seen any play yet, though it is kind of fun as a meme. Polteageist, I've seen a Japanese deck do a Polteageist control deck. That's because of the antique collecting where you can put any 2 in combination of item cards and tool cards from your discard pile into your hand. But the reason why it's on this list is because of its attack Poor T. Put 5 damage counters on your opponent's active Pokemon. Radiant Alakazam has Painful Spoons, a very powerful attack for spread decks like Mismagius. Once during your turn, you may play up to 2 you may move up to 2 damage counters from one of your opponent's Pokemon to another one of their Pokemon. Reuniclus from Silver Tempest has not seen any play. It has the Self-Fork attack. Choose 2 of your opponent's benched Pokemon and put 3 damage counters on each of them. It has an interesting ability worth noting too, Persistent Cells. If this Pokemon's knocked out by damage from an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, you put it into your hands to the discard pile. And when I played it, the way Live did it was it put all the previous evolutions in my hand as well. So that's worth noting. Sableye is everyone's nightmare, at least it was until Lost Zone Box stopped being popular. Has the Lost Mine attack. You can use this attack only if you have 10 or more cards in the Lost Zone. Put 12 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way you like. It's the reason why the new Jirachi card was invented. The other Sableye, brand new, hasn't seen any play as far as I know. Damage Collection. You may move any number of damage counters from your opponent's benched Pokemon to their active. So if you're spreading and you have something big like Charizard EX in play, you can use this attack to bring all the damage counters from the benched Pokemon to KO it, perhaps in one go. Spectrier has Night Footsteps. Choose 2 of your opponent's Pokemon, put 2 damage counters on each of them. So it's like a weaker Mismagius. Vespiquen EX has Phantom Queen. Put 3 damage counters on each of your opponent's benched Pokemon that has any damage counters on it. This is sometimes paired with Tsareena EX because it uses Grass Energy, and the main attack from Tsareena EX only requires 1 Grass Energy. And As we noted earlier, you're putting damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon until there's only 3 HP left, so you could easily KO it with Phantom Queen right here. Hawlucha was popular when it was first released. It has the ability Flying Entry. When you play this Pokemon from your hand, not from a nest ball, not from your deck, to your bench, you may choose 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon, put a damage counter on each of them. That's important because it fixes math. It allows you to start doing something like spreading damage with a Hisuian Braviary or getting a Charizard in 1 or 2 hits, depending on what exactly you're attacking with. Hitmonchan has the Cacturne ability, Counter Attack, although it's a different name. If this Pokemon is in the active spot and is damaged by an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, you put 3 damage counters on it. Iron Boulder EX has Repulsor Axe. During your opponent's next turn, if this Pokemon is damaged by an attack, put 8 damage counters on it. This card, to my knowledge, has not seen any play in any Future Box variant, at least not yet. Lycanroc EX has Scary Fangs. During your opponent's next turn, if this Pokemon is damaged, you put 10 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. Stunfisk has a fun little ability here, Custom Trap. If this Pokemon is in the active spot and has a tool attached, and is then damaged by an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, you put 5 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. It also has Rumble for 30 damage. During your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon can't retreat. So that's a really interesting control card. Hasn't seen any play, but it is really fun to use. Ting-Lu EX has Land Scoop, put 2 damage counters on 1 of your opponent's benched Pokemon. It also has the Cursed Land ability. If this Pokemon is in the active, your opponent's Pokemon have no abilities if they have damage counters on them unless it's a Pokemon EX. Alolan Raticate has Super Fang. Put damage counters on your opponent's active until its remaining HP is 10. This is often paired with Brute Bonnet to get an instant poison KO as well. Hisuian Samurott V-Star, Mooncleave Star. During your turn, you may put 4 damage counters on 1 of your opponent's Pokemon. Like Hawlucha, that fixes math. This has not seen any competitive play to my knowledge either. Liepard has Dishonest Swap, the same as Dedenne EX. Move all damage counters from 1 of your benched Pokemon to your opponent's active. Bostiff is the same as Mewtwo, Comeuppance. During your opponent's next turn, if this Pokemon is damaged by an attack, you put damage counters on the attacking Pokemon equal to the damage done to this Pokemon. Spiritomb has Curse Drop. Place 2 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon any way you like. Altaria, Magical Echo. It's like Liepard. Move all damage counters from 1 of your benched Pokemon to 1 of your opponent's active. Hisuian Braviary, the one I mentioned before, it's a free attack, Eerie Cry. You put 3 damage counters on each of your opponent's Pokemon that have any damage counters on it. This is fantastic for anything like with Mismagius or Tsareena, anything where you want to spread damage and you want to keep being able to damage afterward. You don't even have to worry about getting it charged up. Just put it in the active and start taking KOs. Iron Jugulus, if this Pokemon is in the active spot and is damaged by an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, you put 3 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. We've seen that before. Mousehold, Gnaw Relentlessly. Put a damage counter on each of your opponent's Pokemon for each of your Mousehold in play. So that's like an advanced Mismagius, except you need 4 stage 1s in play, and you probably use a Reversal Energy here to basically put 4 damage counters on everything. But because it's so easy to KO, it's a wonder why bother trying to play it. Not that you shouldn't get it to work, but I mean, it might be extremely frustrating. So it's worth maybe looking into if you have the time, but otherwise I'd give this one a pass. Mousehold EX has the ability Solidarity, which is the same as the Chestnut we looked at earlier. If this Pokemon is in the active spot and it's damaged by an attack, you put 3 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon for each of your Tandem Mouse, Mousehold, or Mousehold EX in place. You got 3 chances there. This Mousehold EX, its previous form Tandem Mouse, or this Mousehold right here will do the job. Then we have the Trainers Calamitous Snowy Mountain. This is popular with Unpheasant decks. Whenever any player attaches an energy card from their hand to one of their basic non-water Pokemon, you put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. Gape Bog is popular with Hisuian Zoroark V-Star, also some Gengar EX decks. Whenever either player puts a basic Pokemon from their hand on their bench, you put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. Box of Disaster was popular with Mew VMAX before it rotated. If the V Pokemon this card is attached to its full HP and is knocked out, you put 8 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. It's basically the tool version of Mismagius' ability. Earth and Sealstone saw absolutely no play, even though it is still in rotation. Star Gravity, put damage counters on each of your opponent's Pokemon V until its remaining HP is 100. Rocky Helmet, if the Pokemon this card is attached to in the active spot is damaged by an attack, put 2 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. Vengeful Punch. This pairs extremely well with Mismagius because of its ability. If the Pokemon this card is attached to is knocked out by damage from an attack, put 4 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. It also works well with Maushold EX and Chestnut V. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the damage counter card list. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Please take care of yourselves, and God bless you.